Hey there friends, Nibs again. I'm out here in the garage doing a little bit of goofing around tonight, a little bit of tinkering around, a little bit of tinkering, and I wanted to show you guys a little bit of adjustments that I figured out that I could make to my P17 to make the trigger just about as phenomenal as the trigger in my Beeman P3. And I really hope this doesn't get me in any hot water with YouTube. I'm really not showing you how to modify anything. I'm showing you how to make adjustments to the trigger that's already there just to make it a better trigger, a better feeling trigger. The trigger that was in my Beeman P3, if you guys watched my video I did just a couple of days ago on that, that has a phenomenal trigger pull. It's best trigger of anything I have out here in the garage. And that one was measuring right in at about a 4-ounce trigger. And I actually opened that up to take a look inside of it, and it's a pretty interesting mechanism. And I'll show you some pieces in there. I've already done the modification to the P17, and it has a nice trigger now too. And I'll tell you guys exactly what I did or what I was able to do to it. So there's a couple of pieces in here that, let's see if I can get the lighting here, but so we have, this is the trigger here, and then this little piece up here falls down in between. So this little arm here, whoops, sorry, this little arm here actually is what hits the valve. This is the valve for the that lets the air out. So when you cock it, this little arm here reacts with this little arm. I'm having a hard time with this arm here, and there's a mating surface between these two pieces that is actually underneath this, and you have to, on the P3, I'll put up, or on the P17, I'll put up a picture here of what it looked like beforehand. Just very rough, very gritty, and that actually was the biggest problem. It wasn't so much the spring rate, but there was a spring rate issue as well. But the first thing I did was take this spring out of the P3, thinking maybe it was just the spring, because the spring in the P17 was very much heavier than the spring in the P3. And it did make a difference. So my P17 trigger was about 1 pound 9 ounces to start off with, which from what I'm reading about these P17s was actually a pretty good trigger for one of those to start off with. But I put that in there, and it only made a couple of ounces of difference really. So I took those two pieces out, and got to figure out where the little mating surface is there, and I'm not going to show you because again YouTube will demonetize me. And then I took 400, 600, and 1500 grit sandpaper and polished those two surfaces. And then I actually took my Dremel tool with a felt wheel, and where's it at? Oh, it's over here somewhere. And some jeweler's rouge, and did a final buff on those two pieces. And here's what they ended up looking like afterwards. And I put those back in, and that brought my pull weight down to right around 1 pound. So still some spring problems there with the old spring. So I took the spring out of the P3 again, put it over in there. Now I was down to right around about a 5 or 6 ounce trigger. I didn't want to keep the spring out of the P3, so I found a different spring in my spare spring kit here. Put it inside the P17, and that's where we're at now. So it's actually a lighter trigger than the P3 now. And we'll go ahead and I'll demonstrate that with my Lyman trigger pull gauge. So just if you guys are keeping track of my channel here, I recently did an unboxing video where I unboxed a Marksman 2004. And before we get into the trigger pull on the P17, here's the Marksman 2004. The seller had listed it as needing resealed, and it wasn't. It didn't feel like it was a seal problem, and I took it apart, and it actually ended up being, I'll show you on the P3 here. So on the P3, so these little arms right here, when you cock it, this is actually lifting up on those pieces. Those two arms were bent and not allowing the trigger to reset or cock the action. So I got in there and straightened them out, and now it works really good. So that's actually shooting with more power than the P3 or the P17. So that's very good. I didn't do anything to modify that one yet. It does have a really nice trigger, and we'll do a full review on that soon. But so we're back to the P17. There you go, P17. So when I did my first review, when I first got this, I didn't do any adjustments to it. It had a 1 pound 9 ounce trigger. So as you know, you can pull these up until you hear that click, and that will set the sear, so you can do basically like a dry fire with this gun without having to charge the air cylinder. Let's go ahead and see what we got. We got nothing because I didn't turn the safety off. 3.4 ounces. I may actually tear this apart and put a little bit heavier spring in there. I'm not sure I really want it to be quite that light. 3.1 ounces. Let's do one more. That one was, I think I might have pulled into that one a little bit after it snapped. So let me do another one just to make sure. So you gotta be real careful when you get triggers that are this light. 4.6, so it's, let's see what the average was of those. So 3.9 ounces, so it is averaging a lighter trigger than the P3 now. So I do think I will put a little bit stiffer spring in there, maybe get it up to around a 6 or 7 ounce maybe, or maybe just cut a couple of rings off of this spring that I put in there, and that'll increase the rate. But so the only thing I don't like, I mean, it feels nice, but I don't, it's a 2-stage trigger, but the first and second stages are kind of melted together there. So I'd like to have a little bit heavier on the second stage, just so I can feel the difference between the two. But boy, it's nice. But there you go. So the Beeman P17 can have a phenomenal trigger. And while we're just sitting here, let's just play around with this Marksman real quick. Just see what this does. Oh. 1 pound 3 ounces. Let's do one more. So that's it's already a nice trigger, and that one's got it. When I had this apart, it has as heavy a spring as that P17 had in it. So I think this with a little bit lightened spring, this one will be a real killer as well. So there you go. That's the Marksman 2004, Beeman P3, Beeman P17. Tons of fun out here in the garage. A little bit of a trigger adjustment on this guy. Probably play around with it a little bit more, but so far that is just outstanding. Anyway, till next time, have a great day.